Good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to this Oxford MBA 1+1 information session. My name's Charlotte Kelshiker. A warm welcome to you this morning. Well, it's this morning for me. It might be the evening for you, but no matter where you are or what time of day, it's great to be with you for the next hour or so. Now, before we get things underway, I would very much like to know whether you can hear me or not. So if you could please use the question and answer box, not the chat, the Q&A box, please, to just type in and give me some feedback. Let me know that you can hear me, and then I'll carry on. Brilliant. Thank you ever so much. Right, let's get things going then. So what I propose to do for the next half an hour or so, while I get through the slide deck, I'm going to remove myself from your view so that rather than stare at my face for the next 30 minutes while we go through the information session, you can actually look at the slides and concentrate on those. And then I shall pop back and be face to face with you for some questions and answers a little bit later. A few things to mention first of all. We are recording the session, so don't worry about having to frantically scribble down notes if you see something on slide, or if I mention something that you think is really pertinent. Don't worry about having to scribble it down. Because you have registered and are attending the webinar, you will get sent a recording very shortly afterwards, okay? So don't worry about that. And we will be going through any questions that you have for me. I will save them together and speak to those questions after I've finished my slide deck, if that's okay with you. And to submit those questions, I'd like you to type them into the question and answer box. So don't use the chat, please use Q&A to submit some questions, and I will come back to those at the end of the deck. And I will deliberately choose the questions that I think have the most broad appeal to our audience today. It doesn't mean I won't answer your questions at all, but the other questions might be better addressed one-to-one via email. So without further ado, I am going to remove my face from your view, and then you can just get to concentrate on my voice and watch the slides while we get through the deck. So the Oxford 1+1 MBA, it's a different program. It really is. For us, it offers something quite special and a very different proposition to just doing the one-year MBA, because what it offers you is two separate programs of study that together combine to form a really powerful academic experience. You end up completing 2 Oxford degrees, and clearly having 2 years at Oxford and access to all of the services, that means you get to think about your life, your profession, perhaps the career transition that you're looking to effect for 2 years instead of 1. So that's an absolute bonus for you. It really gives you that headspace and that perspective of 2 years rather than just the 12 months that our classic one-year MBA affords you. It can often work out to be more cost effective than a 2-year MBA. 2-year MBA programs are notoriously expensive. Just to give you an idea of the cost of the Oxford MBA 1+1, to give you an idea, next year, for example, the MBA program is going to cost £63,000. And as an example, one of the partner programs, an MSc, a classic MSc, let's say computer science as our example, is about £26,400. That's for an overseas student. So if you think about those numbers, and clearly they're going to go up by the time you're studying, but it gives you an idea. Think about those numbers and think how cost effective that could be compared with a classic 24-month MBA. But of course, something on the back of that you might be already mindful of, you might already know about, and indeed it might be why you're joining us today, is the fact that as an Oxford MBA 1+1 student, you are considered for the Pershing Square Scholarship. Now, this is a very illustrious elite funding package that covers both programs of study. So as a confirmed 1+1 student, Pershing Square Foundation will fund not only your master's partner program, but also your MBA. You'll also receive a stipend towards your living expenses, and a trek to New York in the spring term to benefit from some networking and mentoring. But I'll talk about Pershing Square in a bit more detail later on. But suffice to say, because the programme is so special to us, we have a very special funding opportunity also, Pershing Square. And we're going to revisit that in a little bit later time. So let's think about how the 1+1 breaks down. Let's think about this 2-year opportunity. As you may already know, in year 1, the principle is that you will study for one of what we call our partner programs. Now, these are taught master's degrees. There is a finite list of programs available, and I will go through those with you in a couple of slides' time. But suffice to say, in year 1, this is when you take a really deep dive into an academic discipline that is close to your heart and close to your professional purpose. It is a specialist degree, so you will be finding yourself in a class that is typically quite small. Most Oxford degrees are really quite small and perfectly formed, deliberately so, because they are highly selective, highly academic, and highly specialist. But even though in your first year at Oxford, you're not studying for the MBA, it doesn't mean you're not a member of the business school community, because we very much view you as a member of our community from the moment you arrive in Oxford to do your master's programme. So we welcome you into the SBS community in your first year, and we make sure that you are invited to and included in all kinds of events that are peppered throughout the academic calendar in your first year. You also start to have some access to the careers team, not only at the university, but also at the business school. So you can start to think about the end of your 2-year process, the end of your MBA 1+1, and your ultimate professional ambition while you're still completing your master's degree. So you can start to work with our careers development team at the school during your first year. And then in year 2, after you've finished your academically specialist program, you then progress onto the Oxford MBA. So this is our classic 1-year MBA program, super intense. We've basically taken a 2-year MBA, stripped out all of the time, and really compressed it into a very focused and very fast-paced and full program of studies for you. It's a very broad-based generalist MBA. So we teach you a very broad grounding of all of the principles and key skills and foundations that you would expect in any MBA program. But you then get to tailor your MBA content in your second and third terms by choosing electives that speak to you. These could be electives that just simply pique your interest, or it could be that there are a selection of electives that chime particularly with your professional objectives and perhaps the career that you have in mind after you've graduated from the 1+1 program. So for example, you can choose electives that you can package together that would give you a more, let's say perhaps a finance focused pathway through the MBA, and equally a pathway that you could put together for yourself that might give you a more impact focused content. The MBA is a very, very practical program of study. So unlike year 1, where it really is about the sheer brain power and the really academic and rigorous deep dive into a single discipline, in year 2, while you're doing the MBA, you are really going to be enjoying a lot of applied learning. So not just theories and frameworks, but really looking at real world examples of how you then apply that learning in the workplace, real everyday challenges that you've either encountered in your career to date, or you know you're likely to encounter going forward. So we make that a very, very applied and practical aspect of the program that gives you real tools, skills, and techniques that you can apply to your professional life. And of course, at the end of year 2, you really are looking to launch yourself career-wise. Now, you will have been taking counsel from our careers team and from your network, the cohort around you, faculty, both at your academic department in year 1 and also at the business school in year 2, that will really help you take pole position when it comes to thinking about the career that you are looking to move into, whether that's accelerating within your current sector or whether perhaps you're looking to affect maybe even quite a significant change in your focus. Okay, so thinking about year 1, first of all, and I've mentioned that there are a range of academic departments that partner with us to form the Oxford MBA 1+1. Now, there's just a taster here of half a dozen academic departments, and it just gives you an idea of the breadth of appeal that the university sees in partnering with the business school to provide this unique 2-year academic opportunity. So you'll see here, top of the list there is the Blavatnik School of Government. Their 1-year MPP program, so the Masters in Public Policy, that's a really popular combination. So to do an MPP in year 1 and then progress onto the MBA in year 2 is a very popular and classic combination that's taken by a number of our 1+1 cohort. We also have here Department of Computer Science. You might be working in legal practice, whether you come from a criminal or civil law background. You'll find that we offer a Bachelor in Civil Law or the Magister Juris, depending on your legal background. You might be looking to partner a legal program with your MBA. You might be thinking about data science and the internet and social networks in your line of work. The Oxford Internet Institute might be a department that you will want to take a closer look at. You could be working in the world of social policy. You could be thinking about evidence-based social intervention and policy construction. So the Department of Social Policy might be a department that bears closer attention from you. And there are also a range of popular programs that are taught in the School of Geography and the Environment, so water science policy and management, environmental change and management. Again, very popular partner programs when coupled with the MBA. And to show you a full list of programs, here we are. You can see that I think the list these days, it must number nearly 40 partner programs that you can choose from. Certainly when I was originally involved in the 1+1 program a few years ago, now it was definitely less than 20 programs that were on offer, but now we're really heading towards 40 or so. The way that partner programs come on board for us is that the other academic department would normally approach the school, go through various levels of divisional university-wide application to look more closely into partnering with the business school if that other academic department feels that the combination of their program plus the MBA could be really powerful for students. So we do see from year to year new departments coming on board. We have 2 new programs that we're welcoming as partner programs next year. The MSc in Sustainability, Enterprise and the Environment is a really exciting new program that's going to be jointly delivered by the Smith School and the School of Geography and the Environment. And the Humanities Division is partnering with us, offering their new Master of Studies in Comparative Literature and Critical Translation. But as you see, as you're reading down the page here, there is a really, really broad range of partner programs that you can choose from. They are very academic programs, and for many of them, you will find that you need to come from an academic background in that discipline. For example, it might be a subject that you've studied at undergraduate level, and you now want to take that to a deeper academic perspective. But you know that you also want the practical and developmental aspect of the MBA in your life, and therefore perhaps that kind of thought process has brought you to thinking about the 1+1. So Oxford, what does it offer? Well, I think it offers a lot more than just walking away in 2 years' time with 2 degrees. Every student at the University of Oxford has to be a member of one of the colleges. And for you, that means 2 years to really enjoy not only spending time in your academic departments, let's say, for example, that might be the Department of Education in year 1 and the Business School in year 2, but it gives you a chance to tap into, to plug into, and to be a really active member of that third community, and that's your college. That's where you're going to spend a lot of time getting to know students who are really, really different to you. Perhaps they're studying completely different subjects. They might be undergraduate students themselves. They might be postdoctoral researchers. They might be academics and faculty who are teaching on program, but a completely different discipline. There'll be lots of formal dinners that you're invited to. There'll be all kinds of fun like balls and bops. So your college membership really gives you the opportunity to have another community to be a part of. And when we're thinking about community, of course, being a prospective MBA student, I'm sure this is already top of your mind, but we're talking here also about networks. It's a chance to broaden and deepen your professional network, because you never know who you might want to call upon in your professional future, and it could very well be someone who you met as a fellow member of your college while you were at Oxford. Now, all students are also a member of the Oxford Union, so world famous debating society, so you will be a member of the Oxford Union. And certainly through your MBA year, we will confer upon you membership of the Oxford Union for life. So lots of very distinguished speaker events and debates in chamber that you will be able to attend and indeed host. There are numerous clubs and societies and sports clubs available across the collegiate university. They number, oh gosh, it must be at least 400 different clubs and societies. If you can think of a particular area of interest, whether it's a hobby, whether it's a sport, whether it's a particular profession or an academic interest, you will find a club or society that represents that across the university. I almost guarantee it. So again, a really important other aspect of your life while you're at Oxford. And I think a really crucial counterbalance actually to the academic intensity that you're going to be experiencing during I won't say the 9 to 5, because academic days at Oxford are often a lot longer than that, but a really great counterbalance to your academic endeavour. Particularly thinking about your MBA year, it's full on. It's tough. We work you extremely hard. You'll be learning in the school, in class, maybe online, throughout the day, definitely 9 to 5, likely into the evening as well. You might be working on a go-to project or an entrepreneurship project, or taking part in some kind of lab or co-curricular offering that's taught well into the evening. You might be working hard on your electives. You might have lots of essays to submit and deadlines that you're up against, and it can feel pretty frantic at time. And of course, let's not forget, you very well might be executing a job search while you are at Oxford as well. So busy. It's really important that you have the time to kick back, relax, take the pressure off, and look for other things to do with what little spare time you have that really help you get the most out of your experience. So to really kick back, do your sport, enjoy your hobbies, have some fun, go to your formal dinners, be an active member of your middle common room for 2 years, and really have that lovely counterbalance to your academic frantic life. Okay, so let's get into some of the meat of the application requirements for the 1+1 now. I am a recruitment and admissions advisor for the MBA program. Therefore, I'm going to run you through the application requirements for the MBA in some detail. When it comes to your partner program, clearly that is not something that I can advise on. I am not an admissions expert for 40 different programs, but we'll get onto that in a couple of slides' time. So thinking now about your MBA application. We're looking for candidates that have a decent undergraduate degree. The MBA class is very diverse, academically speaking, so we don't insist that you've studied, for example, something like business administration or management, or even a particularly quantitative subject like mathematics or physics or engineering in your undergraduate degree. The class is super mixed. People come to the MBA from all kinds of walks of life, all kinds of different professions, different academic backgrounds. We just ask that in your undergraduate degree, you have achieved broadly in line with a UK upper second class. Okay, so even though we're Oxford, for the MBA application, we are not highly academically selective. So we're looking for a pretty good showing, but you don't absolutely need to have achieved a first-class honours degree in your undergraduate study. To give us a much better snapshot of your current academic ability, we ask you to take either a GMAT or a GRE. Okay, often students will come to do their MBA perhaps a little later in life. Maybe you've already been at work for 6 years or thereabouts. And so your undergraduate degree doesn't necessarily give us brilliant insight into your potential aptitude to undertake an MBA, but the GMAT or GRE both do that really well. They're standardized tests that look at many different aspects of your current capability, and they broadly mirror the kind of skills that we need our students to be able to use when studying for an MBA. Consequently, those tests are absolutely mandatory for every candidate to the MBA, irrespective of your educational background, irrespective of your professional background, what you studied, where you studied it, where you're from. It doesn't matter. You absolutely need to supply the results of a GMAT or GRE when you make your MBA application. And while we're thinking of it, in the age of coronavirus, clearly a lot of test centres were closed for a long time. Some still are, but both the GMAT and GRE are available as online tests instead. We are very happy to accept the results of either an in-person test or an online test. Either will suffice. Okay, so what else do you need to have to apply to the MBA? Well, you need to have professional experience and you need to have a career plan. You need to know not only what you've done, but where you're going. Because the MBA is a very practical program of study, and because we're not just teaching you academic output, as it were, we are very much expecting you to engage with faculty when we teach and draw upon your own personal real world experience to date when grappling with theories and academic issues that are under discussion in class. Therefore, you can't study for an MBA having never worked. It just doesn't give you a rich experience. It doesn't give you that life experience to draw upon. And it means that the experience for you will not be as fruitful and as practical and as useful going forward compared to whether you actually have some work experience to bring to the party. So we're looking for students, as I mentioned earlier, quite often they're 5 or 6 years into their career. That would definitely represent the average. If you think about experience as a bit of a bell curve, right at the top of the bell, you will find students that are 6 years out from their undergraduate degree, and they're now thinking about either accelerating in their current chosen sector, or perhaps they're now looking to execute a bit of a pivot, a bit of a transition. Perhaps they started out on one career path, a few years under their belt now, and they're thinking, maybe this isn't really for me longer term, but I want to think about what else might be out there for me, and I'm going to use the MBA as a bit of a springboard to help me make that pivot. So we ask for at least an absolute minimum of at least 2 years full-time paid experience that you've gained since you left university. Most students have a good sight more than that. As I say, 5 to 6 years is the norm, but 2 years absolute minimum. And for us, it's not really about just trying to grab together, a few months experience here and a few months there and put it together. Is it 2 years? Yes, that's okay. Think deeply about the quality and nature of the experience that you've had to date. Are you leading people? Are you leading projects? Are you managing budgets? What kind of responsibilities have you had, not only for yourself, but for others? Have you had many international experiences? This might be literally being posted overseas, or this might be working with clients and suppliers who are in other parts of the world, exposing you to perhaps different cultures and different norms. Think about the dealing that you have with other people. Think about whether you have perhaps led people professionally to date. Think about projects that you have been responsible for. Think about the different types of stakeholders that you've engaged with. We're looking for students to come to the program that have had a really rich professional experience to date. So lots of stories to tell and lots of experience to draw upon in class. Often our faculty say, look, we don't have the answers. We're going to ask you the questions. You have the answers. You can teach each other just as much as we can teach you. And I think that's really, really true, particularly when it comes to your MBA year. And of course, coupled with that professional experience is your career plan. Now, this is really crucial when it comes to your MBA application. You need to know where you're going. Okay, you're thinking about investing 2 years of your life, and not inconsiderable sums of money, I might add, into your professional development with a goal in mind. So what is that goal? And you'll find in the MBA application that we ask you to delve into that in quite a lot of detail and really unpack for us what it is you want to do, perhaps what sector, perhaps what geographical location. You might even identify a few target employers. What do you know about their hiring practices for the kind of role that you seek? Who in your network has already affected the kind of change that you're looking to make? How well do you measure up against the selection criteria for your desired employer? And if that doesn't work out, what's the fallback plan? What's the plan B? So there's quite a lot of thinking for you to do around applying to an MBA when it comes to your own professional journey. For the MBA application, we ask you to name 2 people to act as referees for you. And these are frequently professional, particularly for those of you who have been a few years away from academia. I guess you're less likely to still be in close personal contact with faculty who taught you in your undergraduate degree. And what we're really looking for from MBA referees are people that can talk to us about your professional capabilities. So your capability in the workplace, your strengths, your weaknesses, examples, observations. We ask you to also write a supporting statement. It's very short. It's only 250 words and it covers the following title. What else do you want the admissions committee to know about you? So this is your opportunity to think creatively about your MBA application. Clearly, we're going to know all about your undergraduate degree because you're going to be uploading things like your transcripts, so we'll be able to interrogate those. We will know your GMAT or GRE score. We will have your CV. You will have told us about your career plan. We've read references. So what else do you want us to know about you? Think creatively. It could be anything. You might want to tell us about how you like to spend your free time. You might feel that one aspect of your profile is a little weaker than ideal, and you might want to explain that to us. Whatever is going to give your application a little bit more color, a little bit more depth, and just round it out for the committee. Now, you'll see that there's an icon here called video assessment. I'm going to skip over that because my next slide is specifically about that aspect of your MBA application. Just briefly to touch upon English language proficiency, because this won't affect everyone listening. If your degree was taught and examined entirely in English, either because you went to university in the States, for example, or perhaps you went to university in somewhere like India or Singapore, where, yes, Geographically speaking, the first language might not necessarily be English, but your degree was taught and examined completely in English, then you don't need to worry about taking an English test. Okay, we will waive the requirement for you. So all you need to do is prove to us that your undergraduate degree, or your master's degree if you have one, was taught entirely in English. Sometimes the language of instruction is shown on your transcript, and sometimes it's a case of just getting a pro forma letter from your university that confirms the medium of instruction. Super simple, upload that to your application. For any of you who have not completed your undergraduate or a master's degree taught and examined entirely in English, you will need to submit the results of either an IELTS or a TOEFL test with your MBA application. And there are specific scores that you need to achieve, okay? The university sets a benchmark pretty high, so 7.5 overall in IELTS, 110 in TOEFL, and individual component score thresholds that you need to meet. There's lots more information about that on our website. So if you know that you don't qualify for a waiver, make sure you have a thorough read of the FAQs and the application requirements information on our website, because that will tell you more about the language test that you need to take. Okay, so I said I'd come back to the video assessment. Now, this is an important part of the MBA application. You receive a link as part of when you're filling out the application form, and that link, when you click upon it, it takes you to a platform called Kira Talent, used by a lot of business schools these days. You very well might have come across this in your MBA travels if you're applying to other schools, so it's very commonly used by a lot of elite schools these days. And what it does for us, it shows us how you think on your feet. Now, all MBA students are supposed to be pretty good at an elevator pitch, right? You're all consummate networkers. You're all brilliant when you get to know each other for the first time, asking each other those lovely open questions. Tell me a little bit about your background, why you're here, what do you want to do next? You're very good at selling yourselves. And really what the Kira Talent video assessment is doing is mimicking that to a degree. In other words, we will ask you to record some short videos against the clock for questions that you won't have seen for longer than about a minute. So we will ask you a question. Typical question will be something like, so why do you want to come to Oxford to do your MBA? Another question might be, tell me about a time you had to solve a problem at work. When some staff came to you and they had a difference of opinion, how did you step in and help? So there will be short questions that you'll just get to see for a minute or so. So you'll be able to give them a little bit of thought, and then we ask you to spend a minute and a half recording a short video against that clock to tell us your answer. So it's a little bit like an interview scenario. Clearly this is not going to replace any interview that you might be invited to, but it does just give us an insight into your communication skills and your presence and your ability to formulate a lucid and fluent answer to a question that you haven't seen for very long. So it gives us just a little snapshot, as I say, into how you think on your feet. You get plenty of time to practice and prepare, so don't worry about that. You get used to using the technology, get used to seeing yourself on screen and hearing yourself. It's always a little bit odd at first, but everyone's in the same boat. All candidates have to go through this process. It isn't a process that we use for decision making, so as I say, it doesn't replace the interview for us. It just, again, coupled with all of the criteria on the previous slide, it's just another data point when we are building up an overall picture of your capability and your profile. Okay, right. Just mindful that we need to save time for questions you've got for me. Let's canter on now and think about your partner program application. As I mentioned earlier, I work for the business school in the MBA team, so that is my absolute area of expertise. I am not an expert when it comes to academically evaluating candidates to 40 odd different taught master's degrees. So what you need to do for your partner program is head on over to the graduate studies prospectus that you will find on Oxford University's website, and you need to look up the individual course page for the partner program that has caught your eye. And you will see information displayed a little bit like this. I mean, it's much, much more detailed. As you can see, there are many different tabs. There's all about the program, entry requirements, resources. There's information about the fees, funding and costs, and how to apply. So for every program of study, for every partner program, you will find that depth of information available in the graduate studies prospectus. Now, because the partner programs are not currently open to applications, they don't go live for another month or so, what I've done for this slide is to just grab a screenshot of some sample entry requirements for last year's admissions cycle. In other words, the MSc in Environmental Change and Management that's about to start this October. So what was the School of Geography looking for last year? Well, it was looking for you to have a degree, okay? So you need to have a first class or a strong upper second class undergraduate degree in any discipline. Now, as opposed to the MBA requirements, you will probably find that the requirements for your partner program are much more academically stringent. So often you need to have read that precise subject at undergrad. Clearly for this partner program, that's not the case because it says in any discipline, but for some of them, you do have to have an undergraduate degree in that subject. But you can see here that geography are being much more academically selective. You do need that first class degree or a very strong upper second class. You'll also note that for your partner program here, no GRE or GMAT scores are sought. And that's the case for most partner programs. So you need to present that as part of your MBA application, but not your partner program application. It's not usually sought by other academic departments at Oxford. But what you will need is clearly the transcripts for your undergraduate degree. Geography have also asked for a CV. They've asked for a personal statement. So this is almost like a statement of purpose or mission, if you like, why you're applying for this program. What's your motivation for wanting to apply to the MSc in Environmental Change and Management? And you'll note that there is a requirement here for written work, an essay of 2,000 words. So quite a different feel to what we ask for in your MBA application. And again, this really harks back to the fact that this is a very academic program of study. And that written work, if you were looking at the web page live, you'd be able to expand on that point and find out exactly what they would be looking for you to speak to in that piece. And it might be an extract from a previous thesis that shows your capability in a particular subject, or it could just be a 2,000-word academic essay that really shows us your academic ability. So it might be something you craft deliberately to support your partner program application, or you might be lifting a 2,000-word extract, perhaps from a thesis that you've written on a subject before. So it depends on the partner program, but the written work requirement is usually highly academic. And you'll also note here that there are some differences when it comes to your references or your letters of recommendation. So whereas for your MBA application, we want 2 references and they're often professional, for your partner program application, we need 3 referees or 3 references, and 2 of them need to be academic. So again, harks back to the fact that your partner program is very academic and academically selective. So as you've probably figured out by now, you need to submit 2 separate applications. So here's a little flow diagram, just setting that out for you. For your partner program, you need to check the application requirements. You need to get your application complete and submitted by the relevant January deadline for that program of study. So the wider university uses very different application deadlines to the business school. So research, have a look, see what the deadlines are going to be for your chosen partner program. So you submit your application, it's complete by the January deadline. Great, what happens next? Well, in your partner program world, they might make a decision whether to make you an offer or not, purely on the strength of the material you've provided with your application, which is why things like your written work and your academic background is so important, because not all other academic departments interview. You will often succeed or fail based purely on the strength of your written application. If things go well, you'll receive an offer. Great. Concurrently, you'll also be putting together your application for the Oxford MBA. So you'll be checking our requirements for the MBA, as I've already spun through with you. You might have to study for the GMAT or GRE if that's something you don't already have under your belt. You need to apply by the 8th of January. So that is our third deadline. So in the MBA world, we have 4 application deadlines, but for the 1+1, we really need you to apply by the 8th of January. Now, unlike other academic departments, we always interview candidates. We never make an offer of admission without having interviewed you. Okay, but if things go well, then you'll also receive an offer of admission for the MBA. So you'll end up sitting there with 2 offers, one for your partner program, one for the MBA. Brilliant. We confirm you as a 1+1 student and we defer your entry to the MBA for a year. So you can come along, do your partner program in year 1 and then progress onto the MBA in year 2, having successfully completed and passed your partner program. In terms of dates for your diaries, partner programs open to applications on the 1st of September. So they're not open yet. If you look at the Graduate Studies Prospectus before the 1st of September, you will see content that is talking about the previous admission cycle. So you may find that ends up being refreshed. It could be quite different. So wait until the 1st of September to start to do that research. That is when the wider university will open their admissions system and round. There's the web address for you. If you want to bookmark that and check back, have a look at a partner program that has caught your eye that you think might be up your street. And here we are, the MBA application deadlines that are relevant to you as a 1+1 candidate. As I've said, we have 4 application stages, but really only 3 of them are most relevant for 1+1 candidates, and you can apply under either, but make sure you apply by the 8th of January at the latest. So one deadline is coming up super fast, 11th of September, another one on the 30th of October, and then the 8th of January. That's the one that you really need to make sure your application is submitted and complete by. And the reason you want to apply up to and including that January deadline is because clearly I'm sure you want to be considered for a Pershing Square scholarship. So as I mentioned at the top of the webinar, this is a really elite funding package that will take care of your tuition and associated fees for the duration of both of your programs. So that's your MSc or your partner program and your MBA, and there is a living expense stipend as well. We would normally fund up to probably 6 students as Pershing Square scholars. So it is a small scholar community, but then the MBA 1+1 program itself is usually quite small. There's not going to be heaps and heaps of students out there that are capable of being admitted to a partner program and the MBA, both being pretty selective programs of study. So we will, if you are admitted to both programs, we will shortlist you to potentially then be interviewed separately with a view to perhaps awarding you a Pershing Square scholarship. And when we're looking for our prospective scholars, we're really looking for elite academic achievement. We really are looking for academic strength. And we're looking also at your potential. Your academics is something done and dusted. Not much you can do to really change how you performed in your undergraduate degree or your GMAT GRE. But your leadership is something that is not only about what you've demonstrated, but it's also about potential. It's also about your motivation. We're looking for scholars who have really strong personal integrity and a real commitment to focusing on and doing something about world-scale social challenges. So this might be something that you're addressing in your career. Perhaps you've already been working in a particular space that enables you to solve problems that affect a lot of people at scale that are really meaningful and bring about lasting change. Or it could be that that's exactly the kind of endpoint that you see yourself moving towards, having completed the MBA 1+1. Either way, we need to feel that you are strongly committed to really tackling those big, wicked problems. We also want to know that not only are you interested in tackling them, but you've got some really good ideas up your sleeve about how you could go about that. So we'll ask you to start to think about articulating these solutions if we take you through to interview for the Pershing Square Scholarship. And you also need to have a very clear vision of how the 1+1 will help you develop your professional objectives. Now, we ask you to write an additional essay in order to consider you for the Pershing Square Scholarship. That's a 500-word essay. And the title is, How Do You Intend to Change the World? So really, really broad-based title. And you can slice that in whichever way is right for you. But on top of that essay, if we like what we see in the rest of your application and you're confirmed for both of your programs of study, like I say, we will then look at your whole application, we will make a shortlist, and we very well might interview you for the scholarship. Okay, so what are the next steps? I suggest that you hop onto our website if you haven't already and download a 1+1 brochure. If you download that brochure, it means that we can keep in regular contact with you. We can invite you along to events, whether they're online or offline, that we feel are pertinent to you. So it would be great to have a closer relationship with you. There are also a couple of brilliant videos that are available on our website where you can really meet some 1+1 students and hear their stories, hear about how they ended up at Oxford, what their previous life was all about, what they've gone on to achieve since. There's one video that just introduces the 1+1, so lots and lots of vox pops with current students. And there's also a separate video that's all about Pershing Square. So you will find those on our website. You need to start researching your partner programs. Like I say, things kick off for that on the 1st of September. You might need to start preparing yourself for a GMAT or GRE. You might have already done it, in which case, happy days. I'd encourage you to also think about joining open days. Now, clearly the world is a bit weird at the moment and we're not offering in-person open days, but both at the school for the MBA and also the wider Oxford academic community, thinking about here other academic departments, they do hold open days from time to time, and at the moment they will be virtual, but keep an eye on the events pages, both on the university website and the school's website, to see if any open days are coming up that you can join in with. But for now, I would like to invite you to ask me some questions. So I'm going to start my video again. Hello. And let's have a look at the Q&A box. I'm going to scroll back through and see if I can find any that I think have a really nice broad appeal, and I will speak to those. If I don't answer your question, it could be that it's just a little bit too personal, a little bit too niche, not something that I'm equipped to answer. If you're wanting, for example, to know about the right kind of background or entry criteria for one of the partner programs, as I've already said, absolutely not something that I'm going to be speaking about. So you need to look at the graduate studies prospectus for that information and see how you measure up against their criteria. You'll also find in the graduate studies prospectus contact details for other academic departments. And you may find that someone in that academic department is willing to perhaps have a chat with you about your profile, and whether you're in a position to apply to their program or not. So I'd encourage you to take those questions to the relevant partner program department. And if you just have a fairly personal question about the 1+1 itself, be absolutely delighted to hear from you. There's our email address, oxfordmba@sbs.ox.ac.uk. We are on standby in our inbox right now. I think it's my colleague Megan is on standby today. She's waiting to answer any of your questions offline. So drop her an email, keep her busy. And in the meantime, let's go through and I'll answer as many as I can that have broad appeal here and now. Okay, question here, interested in the 1+1, partnering with, okay, criminology and criminal justice, but this person's undergraduate GPA doesn't meet the requirement for criminology. Would a high GMAT score help, I guess, counterbalance that underperformance? Now, one thing I'd say, first of all, I have no idea if criminology ask for a GMAT. I would be surprised if they did. If they do ask for a GMAT as part of their application, talk to criminology and ask them whether in theory a weaker degree could be counterbalanced by a stellar showing in a GMAT. I really wouldn't want to speculate about entry criteria for another program of study. Certainly in the MBA world, if I can just flip that question around in case any of you are thinking, well, yeah, I did my degree, let's say 8 years ago. It was okay, but it wasn't brilliant. Maybe it was more like a 2-2 than a 2-1 or a first. But I am sitting on a 740 GMAT. Certainly for your MBA application, that is the kind of counterbalance that sometimes the committee is very much open to. You know, we are looking at the rounded person. We are reviewing applications in a really holistic fashion. So as I mentioned earlier, every aspect is really just single data points, and we almost add them together to build up a picture of someone's overall strength. Because for the MBA, it's not just about your academic prowess, it's also about your professional background. Whereas I guess colleagues in the Department of Law or Criminology are going to be much more interested in your academic profile. So I would say have a close look at that criteria. If they also want a GMAT, talk to them and see if they are open to that sort of counterbalance approach. But most partner programs will just not be remotely interested in a standardized test that's for graduate management education. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Okay, good question. Right, so you're making 2 applications, right? One to your partner program, one to the MBA. Now, ideal scenario, both of them are successful. Happy days, you're a 1+1, isn't that marvelous? Well, it doesn't always work out like that. Clearly, the outcome of those applications could be different. And it might be that, let's say, for example, you are rejected by your partner program, but the business school makes you an offer of admission to the MBA. In a scenario like that, you are usually more than welcome to just take up your MBA place. Rather than defer it for a year so that you can do your partner program, we wouldn't bother deferring it. We would just expect you to do the MBA straight away in the coming academic year. And of course, for funding purposes, because your partner program application was not successful, Pershing Square is no longer viable for you, but we would automatically consider you for all of the other scholarships that we offer for MBA students. Okay, so that is something that would automatically happen for you if your partner program application was not successful. Okay. A few more questions about not quite meeting the GPA level. I think I've already spoken to that, so I will skip on over. Oh, question here that's a little bit off topic, but I do have a pointer for some extra information here. Talking about making a career transition. Now, I'll take my 1+1 hat off for a moment and I'll put just my straightforward MBA hat back on. Clearly, when you're coming to do an MBA at Oxford or anywhere, often you're thinking about changing your career. Sometimes you're thinking about changing the sector you work in. Sometimes you want to change the sector you work in, where you work, geographically speaking, and also the function within an organization that you work in. Now, that is known as a triple jump. Really, it's a notorious MBA expression, the triple jump. So it's someone who's basically looking to change everything about their career. And it's notoriously pretty tough, but not impossible. My tip for you, if you are thinking about making that kind of change, two things. First, download our latest careers report. It's just gone live a couple of weeks ago, so it's very fresh off the press on our website, and that will give you insight into where people were from before doing the MBA. And this is, I think, the class of 17-18. So where people came from, where they were working geographically, what sector, and where they ended up afterwards. So that will give you some good insight into the kind of transitions that our students have achieved. But suffice to say, when it comes to doing the MBA, you need to be realistic about what is achievable. You need to be very well researched. You need to have a good network around you. Triple jumps are still possible, but they are tough. So have a good reality check about what it is you're wanting to achieve. And when you go through your MBA application, those career development questions, they're deliberately reflective, and they will really make you stop and think and break it down in terms of what you really want to do and why you think you can do it. And some people really can. Question here, is there an age limit? No, there isn't. We are very welcoming of students both at the lower end of the experience range, providing you've got enough experience. As I've said, it's really the type and the nature, not just pure duration of having had a job. But also at the upper end of the range as well. You know, we welcome people into the cohort that have got a great deal of professional experience to draw upon. That can be incredibly powerful to have a very diverse cohort in the school and in class. I think, you know, for you, if you are sitting there perhaps with sort of 12 or 15 years of experience under your belt, you might not want to be surrounded by people in the cohort who are potentially much, much younger than you and perhaps aiming for jobs that are far too junior. You know yourself well. From our perspective, there's no age limits. It's really for you to feel comfortable when you're making your application. All right, what else do we have here? Okay, question here about the video assessment. Do you get to do as many takes as you want? No, short answer. You can practice as many times as you like to get used to seeing yourself and hearing yourself on screen, but when you want to submit your videos for real, you then get one take only. So at that stage, you will see the question, and it will be a question you have not seen before. You'll be given a minute or two to think about your answer. Then you hit record, you speak to the video camera, and then you submit, and that's it. But as I said, you know, this is just one aspect of your application. Everyone's going to be nervous, but it does give us into a good insight into just how you think on your feet under a little bit of pressure. So everyone's in the same boat. Okay, so let's say, for example, you're ready to apply to the MBA earlier than January the 8th. Let's say you apply to the MBA on the 11th of September or the 30th of October, but you're also intending on planning to apply for a partner program. And it could be that you've looked at your partner program outline and you know that the deadline, let's say for the MPP, that doesn't fall until January. So in theory, you can make an application to the MBA quite soon in the next couple of months. You might even know that you've got an offer of admission. And concurrently, you'll be putting your MPP application together, but you won't know the outcome from that until more like March. Just make sure when you're filling out your MBA application form that you choose MBA 1+1. You will be asked questions about your partner program. So we will ask you, which partner program are you applying to? Have you applied to it yet? If you have, what was the outcome? So clearly in that scenario, you'd be able to say, I'm applying to the MPP. I haven't applied yet. I'm going to be applying under their January deadline because the MPP only has one deadline and it falls in January. And what we will do, as we are evaluating you for a place on the MBA, we will do that in isolation, and we will make our decision. And then when it comes to your partner program application, our colleagues at the other academic department will likewise evaluate your application. Now, a question that might be in the back of your mind is, does the business school talk to the other academic department about their candidate? Quick answer, absolutely not. The two applications are considered entirely separately and independently of each other. We do not liaise with the other department at all until we find out that you're holding an offer of admission to both programs. So it's only after those decisions have been made that we will then reach out to, for example, the School of Geography and say, oh, this person, yep, we've also admitted them to the MBA, they're going to be a 1+1, and we'll just let the School of Geography know. So when it comes to that sort of academic decision making, the two applications are considered entirely separately. So question here about the size of the 1+1. It's a small community, I guess deliberately so, because there's not many people out there that want to do that kind of academic deep dive and then an MBA where it really makes sense for someone's professional journey and their story to want to do that. The current MBA cohort is 1+1 cohort is going to be around a dozen students, something like that. The MBA class, just to give you an idea, the MBA class is 320, and a typical taught masters class is probably about 12 students, maybe 20, something like that. So you'll find that the MBA community is huge. Partner program communities are small, and therefore thinking about a bit of a Venn diagram, the overlap, the 1+1's, going to be a pretty small sliver, a small but perfectly formed band of students. Couple more questions here about partner program entry criteria. Yeah, I mean, if the partner program is saying, look, we need you to have, for example, if you're coming from the US, a GPA of 3.7, they pretty much mean it, in my experience. Other programs at Oxford are very highly academically selective, and their published criteria is very much employed. If you do want to know whether there's any flex, like I say, reach out to the partner program department. Their contact details will be provided on their page of the graduate studies prospectus. But my experience leads me to feel that their selectivity, given that they don't use things like GRE and GMAT, that it really is about your academic degree, and it really is about things like your samples of previous academic work. Can you apply to more than one partner program? Yes, you can. So in theory, you might end up being admitted to the MBA, and you might end up being admitted to 2 or 3 different partner programs. Clearly, there will come a point where you need to decide which 2 partner programs you're going to withdraw from. But yeah, you can certainly make multiple applications to different partners. Just make sure for your MBA 1+1 application that you give us the details of the other partner programs that you're applying to, and keep us fully informed as to their outcomes. Right, I know I'm out of time, but I'm just going to see if I can find one more question that I can go through that I think are going to be useful to the broadest number of listeners. Okay, test scores. Thinking here about the MBA application, because it's the MBA application where things like GMAT, GRE are going to be required. Your GMAT and GRE test score, they need to be under 5 years old at the time of the application deadline under which you're applying. So if you're applying for the January 8th deadline, at that deadline, your test score needs to be under 5 years old. If it's older than 5 years, when our staff log into your record on ETS or Pearson VUE, we will be locked out of being able to verify your results. So they need to be younger than 5 years old, please. And English proficiency tests, if that's relevant to anyone, they need to be less than 2 years old. Okay, what have we got? Okay, one last question. I'm so sorry, I'm just going to speak to this last question, then I really do need to end it. But like I say, there's the address. Jot it down, send Megan an email with your questions. We will definitely get round to answering them today for you. Question about the English test again. Someone who did an exchange as part of their undergraduate degree. So I'm not sure where this person was studying for their degree, but they spent some of their degree in the US on exchange for an academic year. Do they have to take an English test? Unfortunately, yes, you do. An exchange is not the completion of a full degree. So in order for us to waive the English proficiency test requirement, you need to have completed a degree that was taught and examined entirely in English. So that's the whole degree and all of the examinations, not just perhaps spending a year or a semester abroad, I'm afraid. So I'm afraid you will need to go and do some studying for your English test. Right, okay, on that note, thank you ever so much for joining me this morning. I hope that was useful. I could literally talk about the 1+1 all day long. It is a complex program because it involves those two applications. Like I say, drop us a line at Oxford MBA at SBS if you've got questions about the MBA side of the process and the MBA application, or just general questions about the 1+1, and any questions or thoughts that you've got about the entry or application criteria for the partner programs, please, please, please look at the Graduate Studies Prospectus on Oxford University's website, find the relevant entry in the prospectus for the partner program. You'll either be able to read more about the criteria there, or if you have any follow-up questions, use the contact details on that page to reach out to the relevant academic departments. And I'm sure admissions staff will do their best to get back to you. But all that it remains for me to say is, again, thanks ever so much for your patience and participation today, listening to me, watching the slides, and for asking excellent questions. I wish you well with your applications, and do please let us know if we can help you further. But for now, all the very best and goodbye.